So let's talk about. I want to talk about the basic, like the state of instruction at this point in time, in two categories: glows and grows. So what are you seeing in classrooms that teachers are doing really, really well, and also making that connection back to professional development that you put in place in order to ensure that a shift in practice is happening that's impacting instruction for kids. So let's start with the glows first and what you're seeing.
You asking me or Mrs. Jones?
Both of you.
One of the positive things I'm seeing that we are tracking our data a lot more and showing some growth in that. Positive is that they are trying to do the one lesson a day, as well as using ANET to help with the warm-ups, to help build and reteach some of those skills and see what skills need to be.
That was your blog, tracking data?
Tracking data.
And that's directly connected back to what we talked about in our PD last week, right?
Yes.
Around making sure that you're embedding that resource into those warm-ups they're doing to give them that practice as well. Okay.
Another glow is they are actually taking the do now and using it like the park skills. So yes, we are focusing on standards, but we also want to know, can these kids use drag and drop? Are they able to do the questions where it's multiple answers? Yes. So like, these are the skills that we need them to do daily so that they can be successful on the park, because those are the big reasons why they're not passing, because they don't understand that concept. So we've been having them in the using the park tracker to kind of now during the do now, what are we focusing on for the week?
Can you describe the park tracker to me, please?
So the park tracker, it has the park skills, it has the date for the week that you're using it. We have park skills, we have any common misconceptions that the students may have with that skill, any barriers that you see that they're running into like throughout the week as you observe them, and the percentage of students that are successful. So the percentage is based off of, when I look at my class, how many students are successful with multiple selected responses. So it's not necessarily like, do you have this question correct, but can you actually do this skill right here, select multiple answers.
And the teacher is the one who has this tracker?
Yes. And actually the teacher's trying to track it into Miss Ingram.
Okay. Do you have a copy of it? I'll take a picture of it. And so, and then they do this for each of their classes, correct?
Yes.
How many questions on average are they giving students to see, like to practice with?
It's a daily practice, so a lot of time, it depends on the teacher, but from talking to them, I know it's anywhere from 3 to 4 questions daily in their warm-ups.
And that's what I see as a growth, because I am coming in and observing the teachers, and sometimes it's too much for the do now. So when you give them all of these problems, there's not enough time for them to be able to finish. So you don't have time to go over it. I see teachers that are going back to the do now, like at the end of the class, and that is not the purpose of the do now.
Right.
So if it's taking that long, I need you to cut it from 4 questions to 2 questions so that you're able to go over what they're doing, and they have enough time to be able to work on it.
So when they're going over the questions, are they looking at the questions for multiple purposes. So one, to see that they can do the multiple select, but then also looking at did they the standard and make sure they selected the correct answers
Yes.
as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, so they I would say they should keep that to a minimum,
Right.
but 2,
Right.
maybe 3 might be a little bit
Depending on
the question, because if
right.
it's a multiple select and they have to select, 2 to 3, kids tend to struggle. So being able to have them have that think time to be able to answer those questions. So I would say yes, sticking between 2 and 3, and just making sure that they're meeting ones, right? So that
Right.
they're actually, because it's just a do now, and giving them that practice. And so if you're doing it every single day, then you don't have to give them 4 questions.
Exactly.
It's like every day they're going to get 2 to 3, depending on how rigorous, well not how, because they're all rigorous, but depending on how meaty they are. And then having them solve those and being able to explain why. So what else are some glows that you see that's happening?
I think like from the Thursday meetings that we're having, they are actually looking at the scope and sequence, and they are kind of condensing those skills. Like, hey, they really know their students. So them looking at the data is getting them to know their students better. So like, I know my students, they mastered this standard right here. Yes, this standard is taught again, but I don't really need to focus that hard on this, so I'm going to plug something else in with that. And so like them just coming and having the calendars and planning out the skills or standards that they want to teach has gotten them better as well.
So it also sounds like, from what I'm seeing from everything that we've just talked about so far, that like their planning is a glow. Like they are, which is amazing, because that was the net we talked about at the beginning of the year, right? And we were just like, how are we gonna shift? That was a grow.
Yes.
That was a heavy grow. And I said at the beginning of our work together, that was a heavy grow that you were concerned about. And
Right.
you were like, we really need to get them into the planning. And from what you shared and from what I saw last week, they're taking to heart like the data, right? And then not just looking at it that week that we have a data meeting, or because that does happen. Like they're literally taking it and using it on an ongoing basis. And then do you also see them using like their exit tickets and student classwork also as data points in their planning, or are they kind of sticking more to like their interim data and then?
So so school-wide we did something around exit tickets. I'm not gonna say that they're not using that, because we're not at that point yet where where the school is ready to pull the small groups. So we are working towards that point. We are building up to that, but they're not there yet.
What's the holdback? What's holding it back from that?
I think they have all the pieces to the puzzle, but it's just putting them together. They don't understand that connection. So it's really going to have to be where we have months of focusing on. I ain't gonna say they can't do it without.
I think it's because it's a new curriculum. And I can speak for me. By it being a new curriculum, I don't pull as many small groups as I used to. So when I was comfortable with Agile Mind, I knew it front and back.
Right.
In my hand, so I knew when to pull a group. I knew how to get a group there and what to do. I didn't look at as much data as I do this year, so that's a growth for me. But I think by it being a new curriculum, as teachers, we're getting acclimated to which problems we need to use, which problems we don't need to use. Like, it was really helpful the way you explained how to go through the lesson the teacher did, and that was very helpful. But even with that, they still, gave that to us last week, and if we haven't been doing it that way, now we have to get ourselves in tune. It's kind of like kids. You have to get used to doing certain things. And so now we're used to it. Now we're getting used to Eureka, getting used to how things are going. Now it's getting comfortable with saying, they don't have this major skill, but I still need to pull this group because I need to back off and let them learn on their own somewhat. You know what I'm saying? Like, I pulled groups before in my class, but even with that, I don't know, I sometimes I don't feel like I'm getting the result that I need to get.
I think it's the planning thing. So I think the part of planning, we weren't focused on that small group section. I think it's just a part of planning because I have worked on staying on time on task. So like, you know, sticking to the schedule. If this is this amount of time, this is the time that you give it. You might give 5 or, you know, more minutes or something like that, but you shouldn't be giving 10 or 15 minutes extra. So when you look at the lesson plans, like that part is blank. Nobody's putting in anything for groups. And I don't think it's because it's a new curriculum, because we have brought you up to the point, it's leading up to where, oh, this is why you have that tracker to look at your exit tickets to see what they did on the standard, because this is all moving into the next step of you being into small groups. But I feel like it's a phobia for middle school teachers. So like, it's so easy as elementary teachers. It's like, it's like it's a non-negotiable. You have to pull small groups. I look at them and I'm like, how can't you?
Right.
Why don't you do this?
Right.
So like they spend so much time doing whole group instruction, and this is why these 5 students aren't getting it, because I might not need to focus on that piece so much. I need this right here so that I can say, hey, at least 80% of my students have mastered this standard because I done brought this little group over.
Right.
And this is what I need to get them to see. So it's like a shifting their mindsets and getting them out of that comfort zone.
I hear a couple of things in this. I hear one, y'all are in a great place, because that's not normal. When we talk about small groups, that's not normally what I hear from schools. Like, it's the teachers holding the teachers back. Does that make sense? Like, usually it's the kids. Usually it's like, I can't do small group because if I'm working with this one group, then Johnny and Jack off the chain, and I'm fearful because I'm going to lose control. That's what I hear consistently all the time. It's not,
so
that's
management.
it's a management. Y'all are not, like, everyone wants to do it, right? And has the control in the classroom to do it and to do it successfully. But the holdback is, as Ingram said, it's a new curriculum. I'm trying to get familiar with the Ingram. You're a great teacher.
Right, she can do it.
Screw the good curriculum, like getting used to the curriculum. You're a good teacher. So it's more of shifting the structure of your classroom to meet the needs of that small group. And so like Joan said, she and I talked about this at the beginning of the year. I did small groups in middle school. That's all I did. And that's all we did as a school. So you have to restructure how those classrooms look, and those small groups can drive that, right? Because you can put them in whatever small groups you're pulling, let that be their rotation for that day. And so that group of kids, they're working on whether they're on the computer, whether they're doing individual work, whether they're having discourse. Like, have a group where you have kids who they're discussing a math task. You give them the protocol on how to discuss it, what they're supposed to do, and what they should have, what should be the outcome when they leave that. Now, if you give them, how many minutes are your classes?
84 minutes.
So you give them 20, 25 minutes in two rotations, right? You have some kids on the computer. You have kids in small groups with you. You have kids doing some independent work. You have kids doing a group, like, and having discourse. Just having them do different things that they can try out this math, and not you guiding. Like, you're just a facilitator of learning. Y'all have that.
But not 25 minutes.
So they don't understand this, that I really set them up to be successful. Because like, if you look at the tracker that they have, so when they do the exit ticket tracker, you literally could do, this is how when I did this with them, this is my thing. Blue, green, yellow, and then we have red, right? So I'm telling them, if this is Smith, these people are here, this person is here, and I have whatever the percentages are, you get what I'm saying? Like now, and this is the standard, give me something, 7.15, whatever. You know, yeah. So then you have the same standard, you have the same concept here that you have. But then now that I pulled these kids in small group, this is what I'm setting them up for. Then
They're going back.
Misha now moved to green.
Right.
Once I tested her again, so I'm actually teaching this small group. Then I'm giving you an independent task to go back, and then I have 2 questions to deal with that standard. Now you are able to see. So when you talk about your data, you're able to see how she moves. She went from being at 50% to being at 85% now.
And you want that independent work. You also, whatever independent work you give them to do, I would suggest that you give them one, like align with, like we talked about this multiple select and this, but then also we talked about this last week, is writing, right?
So my question is the struggle to get them from red to the green, right? Is the struggle more embedded in the actual standard, the lack of knowledge of the standard, or is the struggle in what am I giving them on top of what I've already taught them before?
So I think the struggle is, I can't tell if the struggle is lack of understanding of the standard until you really pull them in small groups. So I have to go and observe a small group. Like I'm gonna make Ms. Ingram the model and show them like the process of, let's show a video. We got best practices in the building.
Right.
Let you see how she's running her small group. What is this based off of? Like she actually either took her corrective action plan and this is what she pulled it from, or she used the exit ticket data and she pulled this from. But the problem is when you go around, that section of the lesson plan is blank. Like they not even putting nothing in. And so it's part of, we had to get used to planning just for the regular day. So now planning for small group that takes some time.
Yeah. So that leads into my question of, do we really know how to plan appropriately for this small group?
No, so that's the thing. That's our next step. Like, so that's what I'm saying. This is our next step. Like, we have now, Lisa and I have been talking from the beginning.
Since we started November,
it was planning. It was the teachers just planning regularly for the day.
Right.
Now they are getting the
planning for the day.
Yeah.
Now we need you to move
planning for a small group.
So then it becomes, so now a strategy needs to be that when you do come in, so when's your next time that you're coming?
I think next week.
So when you come in, then the strategy needs to be the day that you come in, we need to ask for our math teachers to have a small group session set up for that day. So then that way you can make it a point to go into the classrooms to give feedback to their small groups. And then on top of that, with Ms. Jones going into Ms. Ingram's and recording the session of a small group in Ms. Ingram's class, so then that way the teachers will have the feedback from you, and they will also be able to then sit collectively in your meeting to watch the video. Maybe we can even do the you know how they take the evaluate the observation form, and you pretty much write down, you scribe everything in an observation form. We can give them specific things to look for. Like maybe we can give them, look for like the research on small groups, like what should small group entail, and have them specifically look for those things in the video. So planning that appropriately, so then that way they're able to see it, because you're right, when they see it with kids that are our own, it makes a total difference.
Right.
Because the videos that you'll find online are not our kids.
Right.
It's not our reality.
And I think the other part too, like that they have to get into the rhythm, and we think about small groups outside of interim data, right? Are those exit tickets or what? So they're like that day, like when they give them the exit ticket, when they're looking at those exit tickets at the end of the day, then you're looking back at your lesson for tomorrow and saying, okay, so I'm gonna pull. These are the small groups I'm gonna pull tomorrow based off of what I'm seeing from these exit tickets today. And so putting that cycle into place, then you're gonna meet those needs of the kids. But I also think, and I pushed with teachers last week, was really understanding, not just giving them problems or tasks to complete, but when you have that exit ticket, right, put it in front of James and have James reflect as to why he answered the way he did, right? And have him do it in writing and say, okay, here's your reflection sheet. Don't tell him if it's right or wrong, just tell me why, like explain to me why you did what you did.
But I'm gonna push. I'm gonna push back on that, because what I don't want is, I want our message to be so clear and doable. because I don't want for our staff to feel overwhelmed, because I hear when we're saying, you know, them planning the day was a push. So if we're going to a place where we're now planning for small groups, and we're also saying we want you to utilize your exit ticket, I don't want us to throw too many things at them.
Right.
And for them to become so overwhelmed that everything falls.
But I think that the exit ticket, so like it was kind of like this gradual progression that we were doing with them. I already did the exit ticket thing with them. We already talked about the tracker for that point of leading up to small group. When you do your small group, this is a data source. That's one data source.
And the exit tickets are embedded in the curriculum anyway, so they don't have to create them. I just want them to get in the habit.
Are we at the place where we're utilizing the exit tickets for reflection of students? I know that the tracker that we see in class is right now it's for the students to be able to identify just what areas they're succeeding at. But have we successfully used the tracker for reflection?
So, no, because that's not the purpose of what we use the tracker. So I think she's just saying, like, on the exit ticket period, like, just to get them to write a sentence.
And also
to say, explain this. So, like, if you did this work, why did you do this? So you might write a sentence, I did this because, I don't know, we are working on tape diagrams, and I know this about tape diagrams. So it's just going to, like, the vocabulary and stuff like that.
And where that
would
would
have that writing
also,
piece.
Scott, what I'm trying to lead the teachers to get to is what we talked about last week is targeting from the standard, because when you go on the standards tab and it has the list of like all the parts of the standard, so they're not trying to reteach all the parts of the standard. So if they have the students be able to say, this is why I did what I did, that cuts their time so much. Then now they're like, okay, it might have 10 parts of the standard, but he's just not getting one of them. Yes. You know, or like consistent, like these 10 kids are not getting this part. So now that's all I have
How
to focus on.
How consistent are we? Because we want to be, we're striving to get to the place where we're doing small groups. But we also want to be very realistic as to where the majority of our staff is right now. How successful are we seeing something like exit tickets being implemented in classrooms?
I think that's real successful because they follow the curriculum to a T.
Okay.
So this is the thing, it's embedded, the exit tickets are embedded in the curriculum.
If you don't use, like, I don't use the exit tickets all the time, sometimes I use the problem set as an exit ticket.
Right.
So
it's some form of an exit ticket to give you
exit
some
ticket,
data.
yeah. So it varies with every teacher, but like even I told the teachers, even if you don't use the exit, have something that you have something to look back on and reflect on, and we are using that. We are doing that.
Good.
Whether it be just a problem, whatever.
At least as far as the math team, like as a whole. So like we are there. Like I'm really want them to go through the process.
Because they literally, Scott, like they really are, from when Jones and I first started meeting to where when I met with them last week, I like left here super excited because one, everybody dug into what we were doing last week. And it was overwhelming. We know because when they looked at the example one, everybody's like, oh Lord. Oh. But I also saw excitement and rejuvenation because it was like, oh my gosh, like now I see where it's getting to and the connection. So I think that your teachers are very much there. It's more having those, like that support and structures in place so they know, like, if I'm struggling in this, what can I do to adjust, or what other resource do I have that'll help me to be able to adapt?
So as a building, one of our goals as a building was to get us to a place where we were identifying, based on the data, what the small groups are as a building as a whole. Do we think we can push the math team to get beyond that and to get to a place where we're now talking about not just small groups, but by the end of the school year talking about what reteaching looks like? Do we think we can get there with the math team?
I think that they just double down with the
a lot of stuff is like it's what I'm seeing with them is I'm really not. I feel like they really have the knowledge. When I'm sitting and playing with Miss Ingram, all I'm doing is guiding
Just
them by
guiding the
making the
conversation.
form
Yes.
specific to what I want to see.
Right.
So I'm literally sitting with Miss Ingram, like, Miss Ingram, this is what I want them to do. So now, this is the form right here. This is what I want them to, it's nothing, you
Right.
doing, I'm taking you through the process
She's doing
in my
the work.
mind, but yeah. But then they just
Which is
plugging
excellent.
in, which is making it easier for them, because they just need, it's not that they don't know what to do, but they needed some guidance on where to start.
So now I wanna ask Ms. Ingram a question. First off, you've been doing an awesome job at leading this task, cause I know this is on top of what you're already doing, right? But I wanna ask you on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you think, teachers are in terms of, whether or not they're overwhelmed with the process and whether they feel supported, with the process from either the extra resources or resources as a whole, or even yourself?
Okay. As far as being overwhelmed, it's probably about an 8 or 9, because they are.
Okay,
And it's not everyone on the whole, but majority of them are.
okay,
As far as being supported, from what I'm seeing, I would think that it's probably about the same. It's probably about the same because they ask for help.
okay,
You know, we talk to each other and question each other, and then if I don't have the answer, I'll tell them, look, go see Ms. Jones, or I'll find out for you. But, so they know that they can get that support where needed, and, you know, we laugh and we joke about it, but, you know, it's a lot of work, and I think more the special ed teachers need the most support right now.
what do you think they need this, most support in? Do you think it's curriculum based, or do you
I
think
think
it's
it's experience.
experience or
They're
management?
just novice teachers and they don't have that experience that like her and Nish has.
It might be. It might be experience based. I'm not sure. I think they do need the, you know, between doing their special ed stuff that I don't know anything about, and the stuff they have to do, but then the teaching of the curriculum and saying, okay, I have to differentiate some things in order to meet the needs of my students, and that takes some planning and some work, you know, and like I told my sis, some things you're just gonna have to do. I don't know what else to say.
Is that something that you feel like if you had the ability to go maybe into their classrooms and give them feedback, do you think that would be helpful to them? Or do you think they still would be overwhelmed?
Still be doing
Okay. So,
Yeah, I think,
so that's
I
a
think
different
they
type
did.
of problem.
They're
Yeah,
probably, yeah, it's more
that's a
than,
different type of
it's more
issue.
than
I'm
that.
thinking
Like,
I could help that.
I feel like I know what their issue is.
Yeah.
And it's not a
It's not a math issue.
thing, no.
It's not a math
It's
issue.
it's a job, like,
yeah.
this
Like
is
you're
part
working.
of your
We need you to work.
professional responsibility, yeah. We just
Okay.
need you to work. Yeah.
So, here's what, you know, I would, challenge all of you guys to do. In your math, meetings, maybe the very first 5 minutes of it, do some sort of, activity that feeds to, that talks about the stress level of it. And kind of makes it, almost normalizes it, because there's a certain level, I would be almost interested to know, like even asking you, I would be almost interested to know what level on a scale of 1 to 10 do you think is normal stress level for something that you're learning for the first time? You know, and really helping them come to that understanding, or even doing something that's specific enough that helps them to understand, yeah, I am stressed about it, or yeah, it is overwhelming at times, but I'm actually making the progress. So making that connection, or whether it's even a celebration that you do in the first, you know, like let's celebrate, give me one thing that you need to celebrate and one thing that you need to, whatever the case is, it can be something simple, to kind of hone in on the fact that y'all are actually making progress. Because in the building, as a whole, our math department is actually soaring. And there are times that we all feel overwhelmed, but what's happening is we're seeing the progress happening in math so much greater than in other areas. And what I'm actually doing is using the math team as an example that it can be done.
I think the connection to what Scott was just saying too, that you may wanna do around the, making the connection between accomplishment, even in the stressful, is prime example of like what we did last week and seeing that implemented and then them having like, feeling like, oh my gosh, this took some time off, right? Because that was one of the biggest things that I wanted to reiterate to the math team last week is that process, that protocol is to buy you some time and to buy you some relief.
And
Yeah.
If they're putting it in their practice, then they're gonna feel that, right? They may not feel it the first 3 weeks,
Yeah.
but I promise you, in a month, you're going to feel it because you're going to be able to say, oh my gosh, I was able to sit down with a lesson, like 5 lessons that I was able to go through and click clack what I don't need to do or what I can omit, and I just bought myself back 6 hours, right? And so that, as a teacher with a new curriculum, feeling overwhelmed, to say I bought myself back some time, they're gonna exhale. But I think that making that connection, I think that's perfect what Scott said, like just making that connection between, okay, you went through this to learn like how to make this curriculum a little less overwhelming, and then saying, okay, now what have you seen in the outcome from your planning to what kids are doing and then how you're feeling.
And it's every time that we start something new, y'all gonna have it's gonna be a struggle, but it's a productive struggle because
Yes.
and like
Absolutely.
at the end of it, like Ms. Scott said, you all are going to be like, all right, I got this part right here. Now she putting something else on my lap for me to do now, but you know what? By next year, it's just gonna come natural. Like, oh, we doing this. Oh, we looking at. Y'all gonna automatically do it because you used to doing it.
Yeah.
So like, it is going to be a productive struggle for everybody, but it's going to
'Cause even the
benefit them in the long run.
by the trackers being new and tracking the data, one teacher said, man, I wish I had started doing this at the beginning. And I started laughing. I said, yeah, me too. And it's a struggle. It was a struggle even for myself. But when they
Yeah,
were
you
like,
go with your eyes closed.
yeah, it's a little easier, you know.
Yeah.
We can be in school enough so I can see a full week. I'll be good. But,
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna push you all as a team to make sure that you are tracking these successes, right? Because when you know, I know it too, even in my role here, like
Yeah.
you get into the work and you do things that work and that are best practices, like, and that you need to share or you have in your back pocket to share. But I implore you even now, like reflect on this first part of the year as to what went really well, why you think it went really well, and so that you have that in your back pocket, because next year, teachers are gonna feel overwhelmed again, right? And so
Yeah.
for you as leaders to be able to say, remember last year, this is what we did, and this is what the outcome was. But to be able to reflect and look back and say, we have done some really great things.
I agree.
And then being able to connect that, because y'all gonna have some Rockstar Park data. We gonna name it and claim that,
Yes,
right?
we are.
So
Yes,
when
we
you
are.
get that park data and you look back, you can say, we did this, this, and this is why we got the results. And you can have kids celebrate too, to say like, we did this and this is how it impacted kids. And kids, how did that make you feel when you took that assessment? Look what your scores are. Even if it's a baby who goes from a 1 to a 2, that baby can celebrate going from a 1 to a 2.
Right.
So I think that you guys should reflect on that, even if it's on a bi-weekly basis, that what did we do or what did we change in our practice that has impacted us in a positive way that we want to put in our best practice arsenal.
One of the things that, and I'm glad you said that because that is something that I know for myself I need to do a better job of acknowledging because I brag about our math department all the time, but not to our math department. So I have to have a more strategic plan of doing that. And I I'm gonna need help with figuring out what that looks like, even if it is, me, if I'm not able to make it to your meetings, me then celebrating what you guys are doing within the meetings. What I do want us to kind of make sure that we are still keeping the progress of where we want to be at the end of the year, and don't become so advantageous that we are going well beyond it, because we want to make sure that we're perfecting what we do. So I think that what we talked about, like I put up there the end of the year goal, so is to get to the place where we're perfecting small group and is to get to what does the structure of reteaching look like. What does that actually look like when we're talking about reteaching? And it's not just going back over the same stuff that you're doing. I think that would be the next level. I would also like to we're already in the data analysis part, but I would also like to get to a place where our math department is comfortable enough videotaping a lesson and allowing you guys to actually analyze it in your time. Because if we can get our math teachers to that place to where one, they're openly saying, I want your feedback, that's a whole different level of trust of your team. Because I think that the math team as a whole has the ability to go there and has the ability to say it. I think they want the feedback. So if we can get them to the place, even if we can get, after you, if we can in the next meeting say, who would like to, really get some feedback on maybe one entity, maybe not even a whole lesson, but maybe on this one part of the lesson, and it could be that small group part. That could be what you guys focus on first. But if we can get to the place by the end of the year where we have majority of our staff, because we have a small enough group of teachers in math, that if we can have majority of them do a video, and you guys analyze it in your team time, that would be powerful.
So you probably want to, like Scott was saying, you probably want to start off like Ingram or Joe, if you record and then you one-on-one, look at that video with them, and then, do like a debrief together around that, and then I think that'll build their confidence to then having it in front of everybody. And I'm open to doing that as well, coming in and recording, like to be another extension of you all, a one-on-one with teachers and recording and giving them feedback as well. Also, even with the planning aspect. So coming in, even if it's for that lesson that we're going to videotape, we can put that cycle in where I can come in and I can sit and plan with them, give them feedback, talk about that, and then they execute and we record, and then we go back and look and talk and debrief and talk about it, and then see what we can adjust. And I think also with that is putting in, probably Scott, so we can get to that reteach part, is putting in that conversation, what are we going to adjust to do next?
Right.
Because the shift that's happening is like we're getting away from the term reteach to adaptive, adapting your lesson.
Right.
So that's like even the term that we've switched kind of even in ANET with using and saying, instead of reteaching, because it puts teachers in the mindset of, I'm going to go back and reteach what I taught before. How are you going to adapt what you're doing?
Corrective instruction.
Yep. So how are you going to adapt that moving forward? Because you still have to keep instruction going, right? And so when we talk about reteach, it usually means you take the time out. You take 3 to 5 days and you're reteaching the strategy. But how can you embed what it is that they're missing in your ongoing instruction, because they're going to need it, because we already know, like, that.
So you already where we are. We already talked about, this is why I want the action plan to reflect that. So like, that action plan should have, if I'm doing reteaching, what am I doing? Am I isolating this? Like, they forgot a step. They forgot. Like, I want you to be specific in what you're doing when you go over it. And I want you to use that data as a data source. This is why you should be writing on the exit ticket.
Right.
I see, great job, but you forgot step 3. Refer to the process chart, blah, blah, blah. So kids know specifically what I need to do, what I need to fix. And you can even give it back to them and say, if they do understand it enough, if I forget one step, then I understand it enough.
Right.
Okay, using my notes, go back and fix that. That can also be something I wait to evaluate too. So Ms. Ingram has to go.
Yeah, she has to go. So let's so just the quick follow up. So we're on target with all of those. I think we want to make sure we stay focused on the goal. The ANET support, we're going to tap into that videotaping and that one-on-one, and also the ANET support we have to add on there. The small group.
Yep.
Small
Under
group
ANET support.
observation. Under ANET support, small group observation and feedback.
Yep. Thank you.
Sounds good?
Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Ingram. Okay, let me go to parent meeting.
That sounds so exciting.
If y'all continue,
So Scott, really quickly for just you on the, you were talking about the getting in the habit of like the acknowledging of